Down to business.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Whiskey Musings broadcast. I am your barometrically affected host, Rick. Hold on just a second. I gotta get my light outside the studio going to let everybody know that I'm live, of course. So tonight I kind of want to talk a little bit about careers, and in particular, how you ended up in your career. I know how I got into mine, and I'm assuming that there's going to be some more people who are going to probably follow along with me in terms of, the idea of their career and how they ended up in it. But that being said, I would like to hear from you guys. I really would. I'd like to hear from all of you in terms of how you got started in your career. One of the things that's happened recently, obviously my son graduated from high school. And so I was talking to him a little bit about careers, and we've been discussing it back and forth and that kind of stuff. He knows where he wants to go. And from that, basically, I am looking at it and saying, I don't know if I necessarily knew which way I wanted to go. And they say that if you choose to do something that you love, that you will never work a day in your life. And I'm not quite sure I agree with that. Mainly just because of the fact that, from my perspective, if you do what you love as your job, that eventually you're going to get to the point where you're no longer going to love it anymore. And so from a idea of being able to pick your career and be able to choose that career and do that for all of your life, I'm not quite sure that having a career that you love after doing it for, 20, 25, even sometimes even 30, 40 years, depending upon when you got into your career, you could be looking at a very long time of doing this thing that you started out loving, and probably have changed throughout history. In fact, they say that you change your career and what you're doing on an average across the board about 4 times. So for someone to actually be in a career for a very long time, for more than 20 plus years, that is pretty spectacular in my opinion. Now I could be completely wrong, but I think that's kind of an average. I think it's a statistical average. And so being able to understand, what you want to do when you turn 18 and leave high school, because that's really one of those times in life where they ask you for those kinds of things. You're expected to know this. You're expected to know this the minute that you leave high school, and I can't see that necessarily. I know for me it was a little more difficult. I had some things that happened to me, that decisions that I made, and things that were beyond my control that ended up putting me on a particular path. That being said, I had sort of played with that particular path as I was going through high school. While I was in high school, I was a geek. I was a computer geek, and I did programming. I was in an advanced programming class. I think it was my junior year, maybe. I can't remember specifics, but I know that I went through several computer programming classes, and so I was able to start learning computer stuff way back when computers were just starting off to be the rage for things. In fact, it's kind of interesting looking back on my career, because I do work in information technology. I've been working in it for 25 plus years. but looking back on my career, just seeing the cycle in terms of how computers kind of came about and where they started off as, mainframes, and then they went from mainframes, they moved to thin clients. And I know that those are terms that you may not understand, but watching how the whole cycle has come about now, because now we're talking about how, you no longer have a PC anymore. You actually have and by that, I mean, you have a PC where you store all of your documents and everything locally. You've got Google that's come out and all of these other places that have come out, and you store everything in the cloud. And that's the latest thing. Well, that's kind of what a mainframe actually was back in the day. The only difference is that the mainframe actually didn't sit locally. Now it's somewhere up in the cloud. And believe me, somewhere in that cloud, there is a server that has your files on it. So, that just watching that cycle over the course of the years has definitely been an interesting effect. But that isn't necessarily what prompted to get me into my career. And whether you believe it or not, what I'm doing right now is not my career. Okay, so this is not my career. This is more of a hobby, something that I just started. For those that haven't seen all the episodes, something that I just started. It was interesting, so you could consider if this grows, you could consider this maybe a secondary career for me. But this is more of a hobby-related kind of a deal. So what I do and a normal day-to-day thing is I actually design wireless systems, Wi-Fi systems for distribution centers, hospitals, office places, things like that. And I design them and I help to integrate them into current systems. And I do have a degree. I do have a degree that I did get back in 2002, I think it's 2002 timeframe. In computer, it's Bachelor of Science in Information Technology. So I did actually complete that. But realistically, my particular work is more engaged in things like certificates and short-term, learning books and book learning and taking tests and getting these certificates and that kind of stuff, which the IT world generally tends to seem to be. I mean, you do have IT college degrees, but realistically, the proof is more in the pudding, because the college degrees, unfortunately, the colleges are not able to catch up with and stay up with the emerging technologies. Certificates and certificate-based kind of programs tend to do a much better job at that in my related field. So because of that, the certificates tend to be a little more heavily looked upon instead of a actual college degree. However, even as that was not necessarily the choice that I had originally made. So I don't know if anybody, I think they still do this, but back in high school, they give you a test, and they do it as kind of like a personality test. And you go through this test, you answer a bunch of questions, as part of the responses, it kind of ties you together to where you go and you take a look at the answers, and the computer sort of spits out this slew of information on what it is based on your responses to those particular questions and where your personality traits end up being in terms of the type of career that you should be focused on and heading toward. And for me, and it's amazing that I can even remember this, but for me, the things that I came out with were, and these are the top three, because back then they only gave you three. So the top three that I had, number one, or one of them, was forest ranger. Number two was animal trainer. And number three was a stuntman. Now, that, I mean, how it could came up with those three things for me to go for that my personality would actually fit. I honestly, I don't know. I don't know why they, again, these are psychology tests. They probably weren't very accurate. One of my YouTube watchers right now said he was suited for a cosmetologist. So, from some of those things, those questionnaires and everything, they come out with some very strange results. And I obviously never ended up in any one of those. Even though I did take programming in high school. After I got through there, I went into the service. I think I've mentioned it before. And I went into the service, and in the service, I ended up going into communications. And so basically, what I was doing is I was installing field telephone systems for battlefield environments. We did a lot of radio work. We did a lot of, I did a lot of stuff with RF, which of course led me into the RF field that I'm currently in. So because of the way that I went through and was able to come up with things, because of the way that I went through, I actually feel like rather than you choosing a career, because originally you do. And most of the time people go in, and I've known people that have gone off to college right out of high school. They go off to college and they end up heading toward a degree. And maybe they change their degree options, a couple times during the time that they're there. But ultimately the degree that they ended up with has not been what their career actually ends up being. And so this brings into question, if you make your choice early in life, like you would going through and going to college, is this really the best way for us to continue, and I mean us as a society, to continue everything in terms of where we're going for what we're looking for, to make that decision early in life? Or would it be better if we actually waited a little bit? Because I didn't actually go back to school to get my degree until much later in life, obviously, the first part of the 2000s. But other than that, you need to kind of look at things and see. I mean, there are people out there, and I know a few of them. I know a gentleman right now. He and I have been friends for many, many years. He knew, scarily enough, he knew he wanted to be what he is doing. And he knew it from an early age. And so for him to go through and do this, it was actually amazing to me. And he and I were talking about it. I was just shocked. I was like, you did what? You knew what you wanted to do. And he's been doing it for several years. Multiple years. I mean, been his whole career. Now, granted, right now he's actually instructing in that particular job specialty, but he chose it. He picked it early. He was able to go to school for it. He did what he had to do to get to where he was, and he loves it. He still loves it today. I'm extremely impressed with that, but I don't think that's the norm. I don't think that's the norm. So I want to kind of know from some of you folks, and I'm going to go ahead and throw the phone number up on the screen so you can give us a call. But I don't think that's the norm. I actually think that, again, the career more often picks you, more so than you picking the career. And I also think that what you may have started out doing in early life, what you thought you were going to be doing for the rest of your life, actually isn't necessarily what you are doing today. Now, I know that it seems weird to go and like drop into college or whatever, to be going into this mode of, hey, I've spent all this money, I've gotten all these, this degree, and now I'm not really doing anything with it. And unfortunately, that seems to be the case for a lot of people, especially those that have gone for things like general liberal arts degrees or political science degrees, or any of those generic kind of degrees that you would actually look at going toward. And I think that would be, those types of generic degrees, I think definitely are ones that people don't necessarily get jobs in, especially if you go for like psychology or something like that. Maybe you don't become a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I know that when I first went to college straight out of high school, I started thinking about going and becoming a veterinarian, and that would have fit, except for there's only one problem. I actually got scared when I figured out that, hey, being a veterinarian is no different than being a doctor. You've got 7 years of school. You've got your standard school, and then you've got to apply and get into medical school. And once you get into medical school, then you've got, that time period, whatever that is, 2 to 3 years to get into becoming a veterinarian. And I kind of gave that up. I said, no, that is way too much school for me. And so I ended up getting out, and I dropped classes and things like that, and I moved on. And I ended up going into the service. The service picked me a career, I picked a career. They sort of guided me toward it based on tests. Again, the Armed Forces or Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, the ASVAB test, and I was pushed into that direction. So it actually turned out quite well. So I can't necessarily say that I am not happy with what I'm doing. I am happy with what I'm doing, and I've gotten pretty good at what I do. I tend to think so. I'm not. I've got a good crew of people that I work with, and they help and keep things going for me. As far as that goes, but I kind of sort of fell into it. I wouldn't necessarily say I picked it. And there might be some people out there who have actually picked their careers, who said that they're going to do it. And like I said, I've got a friend who actually is. He went and he found that career. He knew what he was going to do, but I haven't found too many people that are actually that way. And so it's kind of interesting to think about from that standpoint that, are you one who has picked your career from the get-go, or are you one that sort of tried a few things? Because now, after I got out of the service, even though I had been in, I did try a few other things. I tried I tried private investigations. I tried bartending, as I think I've brought up the bartending on the show before. I tried a couple of other things, and they didn't really suit me that well. They didn't suit me that well. So anyway, I have a caller. So let's go ahead and bring this caller on. I have a feeling I know who this is. Hello, caller.
Hello, host.
You're funny. You're a funny guy. Okay, let's see if I can catch up here. So, how did you end up getting into your career? First of all, do you care if somebody knows what your career is? If you don't, go ahead and share it.
No. I'm an electrician.
Okay, so
I'm a certified O1 general electrician. It means I can do everything, because there are different licenses you can get. An O1 is general, that covers everything. O2 is residential, O3 is communication, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it is. It's low voltage electrical, so like your voice and data cabling, yeah. Correct? Yeah.
All right.
Now, so you was that something that you picked, or did you sort of fall into that?
I most definitely fell into it. This was, okay, set your Wayback Machine.
Right.
back in late '90s.
Mm-hmm.
We had just moved to California. We got married in '92. Yes, '92. Nailed it.
Oh my goodness! You can't remember when you got married? Holy smokes!
Well, 91, 92, somewhere in there.
Really? I think you better not. You better hope your wife's not listening. I know she is.
She's right behind me.
I know she is. Wow. Okay, that's for another. That's for another show.
Our anniversaries together, so it's fine.
Oh, okay. All right, so you fell into it.
Okay. Anyway, we were in California. We moved away from Portland. I had a hard time finding a job because I had no skills. I graduated in '89, so I was still young and stupid with no direction.
Mm-hmm.
Go down to California with her parents, and more of the same in California. I can't find a job to save my life that would, pay for my life, because we had, a wife and a new baby.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured I gotta find something, anything to make a career out of. And I was going through the want ads, calling everything that looked remotely interesting. And most of the things that I called that said earn while you learn was military. And there's no way I was going to military.
Okay.
No offense. That wasn't the path for me.
No, it's totally understandable. Totally understandable. In fact, my son and I had a conversation about that, and because my stepfather is also former service as well, and he kind of made a comment about it at once, and I told him, I go, hey, the military is not for everybody. It really isn't, and I know that I would personally be much more comfortable with somebody saying, hey, I know for a fact I don't want to go in the service, than somebody who goes in the service and then changes their mind after they've been there for about a year, because you have a contract that you sign. But anyway, continuing on. So you were looking at military stuff, and what happened next?
I was doing temp service stuff, which actually was kind of enjoyable. Didn't pay very well.
Right.
At one point I was assembling printers.
Oh.
This thing, your normal desktop household printer.
Right.
There's nothing to them, and I got to do that. It was interesting to see how things work, but whatever. So I'm continuing answering these ads that say "earn while you learn," and the last one I answered turned out to be for Western Electrical Contractors Association, WECA.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So they were the school, and it's a pool of individuals, students,
right,
that companies are a part of, and they they interview you, and they pick who they want to hire, and so they pay for your tuition. So I was very lucky to get into this,
right,
just by chance. So fortunately, I got picked by a good non-union company, and I ended up, the first year was difficult because the learning curve is a little steep.
Right.
I mean, granted, a blind monkey can do electrical, but it's knowing what to do and how to do it safely. Well,
now wait a minute. Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I'm going to have to disagree with you on the blind monkey part, because I know that there's a lot of trigonometry, like when you're doing like conduit bending and things like that, understanding how to do the bends and that kind of thing.
Actually, there's a simple math formula for that.
Really? Okay.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. If you want to know. Okay. The most common bend is a 30-degree bend.
Right.
Because your multiplier, if you're doing an offset from, like, you're going up a stair.
Right.
From flat level to flat level.
Mm-hmm.
Your multiplier is 2. So if you're doing a rise of 10 inches, you make 2 marks 20 inches apart, bend it at 30 degrees on both sides, and boom, you're there. So
okay.
That's all counter bending is.
Oh.
Very simple.
Okay. Well, that was why those guys, when I was watching them do their conduit bends, why they could do it so dang fast. Interesting.
Yeah, well, okay, I've been doing it for over 20 years now.
Uh-huh.
And I've gotten to the point where I can pretty much eyeball how far apart to put my bender, and I can get almost perfect every time.
See, now that's the sign, I think, that's the sign of a true craftsman. Someone who really can do the job and enjoys doing it, because you obviously are able to do things without the original assistance and some of the second guesswork, I would say. And,
Yeah.
you know, I have to agree with you. I have, like I was telling you about my other friend who absolutely knew what he wanted to do. He knew it from a very early age. He actually is a craftsman. He does fiber optics, and he is a craftsman such that this guy knows more about fiber optics technology and has probably forgotten more about fiber optics than I think just about anybody else that I've ever spoken with. But that being said, he is a craftsman. And it's people like you and him that are needed in this world, I think. More so than some of like the college educated kids, basically, who go in and get those low end degrees and things like that. He needs to, we need to make sure that the people like you get out there and can, are able to bring on the next generation. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
You started off, you got into it. Would you say that you enjoyed the learning process? I mean, you've done it for 20 years now. So looking back, was this something that you would say that, yes, this actually is what I really, I'm glad that I ran into this. I'm glad that I'm doing it. Or after doing it for 20 years, are you kind of like, yeah, it was nice while it lasted, but I'm looking for something different?
No, after 20 years, I still love doing it. The first 3 years were a bit of a struggle, just because I didn't know anything and I sucked at everything. That's everyone's problem at the very beginning of whatever they do.
Right.
So I was fortunate that, like, in my third year, I found a foreman who kind of took me under his wing and gave me the special projects to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was one of the first guys on this new job. Okay, 3-story office building. It was supposed to be a smart building to where this is way back in early 2000s.
Right.
And, so all this automated stuff was a little new. So when you swipe your card, your office light turns on. It's kind of ridiculous now. You just get a room sensor to turn on when you walk in the room. But that's what they were trying for, and it never worked right.
Right.
But anyway, he let me he said all the electrical rooms were mine. So I got to put in the panels, put in the transformers, and do all the pipe work in the electrical rooms. And that's where I got good at pipe work. And to this day, I love doing bending conduit. Because I had pictures somewhere of some of the racks I've made.
Oh, believe me, I have seen some very impressive work where, for those of you listeners who aren't familiar, when you walk into an electrical room, it's not like, you could, theoretically, go and like put a knot in the conduit or whatever. But the reality of it is that most of the time you don't want to put a lot of bends into it. And the reason being is because the resistance that of the cable, or in your case, the wire, as you're pulling through the conduit, the friction resistance, you end up, if you go 360 degrees or even, I think it's like 270, if you get to a certain degree of bends, total number of bends in there, you're no longer going to be able to pull that wire through it.
I wouldn't say no longer. It just makes it really difficult. Because I have done that. I've had... Okay, the code says no more than 4 90-degree bends or their equivalent.
Right.
Between any 2 pull points.
Right.
So every 360 degrees of bend, you have to put in a J-box.
Right.
Of some kind.
Right, a junction box so that you can pull the next run.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've because we're sitting there and we're counting every bend on each conduit run because the inspector's going to do that too, on not all of them because there's too many things to check.
Right.
But if you have an exposed conduit, he's looking at every bend on that run. Oh, you're over by 10 degrees. Put it in the box. They can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, for 2 years solid, we were doing a lot of condos with underground parking garages.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are 110 units or thereabouts. And I'm doing the conduit from the main electrical room in the parking garage out to where it goes up to the slab.
Right.
To go up to each individual column of rooms. And so I have these racks, five layers deep and maybe 10 wide, 10 pipes wide.
Right.
With inch and a quarter, an inch and a half pipe.
Right.
And I was in heaven because at that point I was trying to make it, this is fourth year.
Right.
So I had gotten into my groove and I was looking to be the best pipe bender I could be. So you line up all your couplings.
Mm-hmm.
If they're staggered, you cut them off so they're all in line. Or
oh wow,
they're all staggered equally. So like you're coming out of a 90.
So you actually turned your pipe work into artwork, is what you did.
Yeah. And my foreman at the time, which was a cool guy, he was this old ex-biker.
Right.
With a hardcore limp. He's just, the classic biker guy that you don't want to mess with no matter what his age.
Right.
And he said, I'm going to take a picture of this and they're going to put it in, the company portfolio. That is that good. Not to toot my own horn.
Well, sometimes I got to be honest, sometimes you kind of have to do that. I mean, you can't just go around and not toot your own horn because nobody else is going to do it for you.
Yeah.
And that actually was something that I told that we had a new gentleman get hired on here not too long ago. And I pretty much told him, I said, look, you as an individual need to manage your career. Other people are not going to do it for you. So for you to be able to go out and like learn and want to learn and that kind of stuff, I mean, I don't know how it went for you, but for me, it was always, hey, give me some hard stuff. Give me the harder things. Give me things to really work on. It sounds like you had a really supportive foreman, somebody who was looking to, teach the next level. And I think that's something that is missing in a lot of places, especially in places like college. I mean, so you've been in the trades, for your entire career. Sounds like you've still got a long way to go. I can't imagine that you're that old. But anyway,
oh, you know how old I am.
I know how old you are. Of course. But as far as like being in the trades, what do you think? I'm going to ask this question because, back when we were in school, because, obviously we were in school together, we know each other. So back when we were in school, one of the big things that I think everybody was talking about was moving on from high school into college, and going to college was like the big thing. Everybody had to go to college. But let me ask you this. After being in the trades, what do you think? What do you think about the thought that people need to go to college? I mean, do you see like a shortfall of people within the trades?
Okay. Yeah, it's hard to find people that want to become electricians now because it's all about computer stuff. I want to do IT. I want to do coding, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody wants to work with their hands anymore. They always use their brain only.
Right.
So.
Well,
But
now wait a minute. I have to admit though that even though you're working with your hands, you still have to work with your brain because you're still dealing with things like that shortcut method to get the proper bend and so on and so forth. I would imagine that it's not like some mundane assembly line job or something like that, that every job sounds like it's a little bit different and you put your own style and spin on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the hardest part is knowing all the tools in your arsenal to attack a problem.
Uh-huh.
Okay, because there are so many devices that you can use to do the exact same thing. It's trying to cherry pick the one just right thing to do the job you need to do.
Well, and
No.
I would actually even hazard a guess that you probably have a lot more knowledge than what you think. I mean, it sounds like you're in a way you're sort of downplaying what you do, but I'm going to tell you, I mean, understanding Ohm's law and being able to do those calculations on the fly, being able to figure out how many amps in a circuit and what kind of circuit you need, and then of course understanding the three. The 2 or 3 different ways to hook up a circuit, whether it's, I can't even remember the names of them, but being able to understand the circuits and the drawings and that kind of stuff. I mean, that's got to be a little complicated, isn't it?
For me, there's only one way to hook up a circuit, okay? Hot and neutral. That's it. You're thinking of electronics, where there's series and parallel.
Well, no, I mean, don't you have 220 and 440, and there's different ways of...
Okay, well... Yeah, 220 is just 2 hots or 3 hots, depending.
Right.
And, okay, you'll see things that say 110, 115, or 120. They're all the same. Okay? 220, 240, they're both the same. Because you're allowed, what is it, a 10% margin of error in the voltage on the service side, and then it goes down from there as you get out to the branch circuits. But sorry, you get me going on rabbit holes, man.
Well, but this is a good opportunity to kind of get out to somebody who might be thinking about what they're doing. I mean, I've had conversations with people, and they've, college, as much as because again, I do have a degree. I did go through college. But it wasn't until later in life. And to be completely honest, I mean, college is not necessarily
for your career, right?
Well, yes,
right.
It did end up. Yes, it did end up tying into my career. I did, But that being said, my original stuff never tied in. I mean, it wouldn't have tied in. Being a veterinarian, sure as heck, wouldn't have tied into IT. That being said, though, I think a lot of people skip the idea that being a tradesman, and I don't necessarily want to call it blue collar, but that is pretty much what everybody kind of thinks of it as, is blue collar working. But I think a lot of people skip the trades because they think, for whatever reason, that it's not going to be necessarily challenging, that it's not going to be the career. It's not glamorous. I am definitely not going to say that it's somebody who's doing plumbing or electrical or anything like that, even like an auto mechanic. It's not glamorous because you don't see a lot of shows about auto mechanics other than, of course, car shows. But I'm just saying, right. Hollywood doesn't have a series show about being an auto mechanic as far as I'm aware. But those are very necessary things for us to do. I mean, you in particular, it was a means to an end getting into it. But realistically, if you think about it, if we didn't have electricians to be able to run those wires and get those circuits right, you would have all kinds of problems. You'd have all kinds of issues.
Yeah. You've seen those pictures of India.
Yes.
And all third world countries where
and
just,
China and...
Oh, dear Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so scary.
Oh, believe me, I see it too, just from a data perspective too. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've seen those. But I've seen those pictures on various places, like Pinterest, where the IT rooms, where the cable management is so spot on. It's like, oh, I love that. But that takes a whole lot of time you got to snake out each wire individually and get it just right.
Yeah, sort of.
There are those people that will do that.
Yeah, well, I was one of them for a while. But anyway. Yeah, but I mean, I think
having
Go ahead.
having been in electrical construction, I have seen how all the other trades work,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe I am very lucky, very blessed to have fallen into this career, because at least in the first part, the new construction electrician,
Right.
we were one of the first ones on, and one of the and probably the last one off of any job.
Right.
Because the first one on, we have to do underground, okay, getting power into the building without going overhead, because that looks ugly. And then we can do underground inside the building to, get the circuits out to where they need to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything in the walls. And then afterwards, we're doing all the trim. When the painters are gone, the carpets are in, we're putting on receptacles, cover plates, adding things that were forgotten,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
So that gives us the longevity. And because now I'm in a service company, to
Mhm.
where you have to know everything. And if you don't know everything, you call your other coworkers because we all have different backgrounds.
Right.
Some of us were residential guys, some of us were commercial guys. I think only 2 of us have gone through official apprenticeship, classroom stuff. Everybody else was trainee, which means learning on the job only.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
you can be just as good being a trainee as a apprentice. It's just you forget more being an apprentice because there's so much stuff you don't even use. Like all my transformer theory, I can't remember a single thing.
Okay.
But I have my coworkers to lean on if I ever get sent to a house. What's the code for this? I don't remember.
Right. Right.
So we all lean on each other for things. We all have our strengths. I've done things they haven't done. They've done things I haven't done. But
Okay.
I had a thought and I lost it. Oh my God.
Okay. Well,
But like I said, being an electrician is one of the, for me, from my viewpoint, is one of the best trades to be in because we have so much to do. When the plumbers are done, they're sitting at home waiting for the next job to start up.
oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I've kind of watched some of the trades. Now granted, I mean, working in the IT related fields that I do, because I did kind of start in cabling and that kind of stuff. But moving from that and seeing where you guys really started. I mean, you literally start once the building the building shell. If you're looking at a brand new construction, once the building shell is up, then you've got your stuff and you do everything from start to finish until the very end.
Yeah.
So I completely understand I think what I'm trying to get at here with this is that I think that people don't seem to get that they don't understand that there are trades out there. And I mean, Mike Rowe kind of pushes the trades. And I think a lot of it has to deal with, and I actually believe this. I believe that we have flipped because America has pushed so much toward being a service related industry. I actually think that we lose out on a lot of the trades jobs. And if you look around, there's people there's jobs, sorry, not people, but there's jobs out there for all kinds of things like, auto mechanics, electricians, plumbers, and not everything has to be all that glamorous either. And so, going into the trades and it's even being shown. Like I've seen things out there, and I don't, you don't have to tell me any of this, but my guess is that if you go into the trade, most of these kids are coming out of college and they've got $60,000 roughly on average of debt for a 4-year degree. And depending upon what that 4-year degree is in, it may not even be something that they can go and get a reasonable job. Because again, you could come out with a liberal arts degree and that literally doesn't really pertain to just about anything. I mean, the idea was, oh yeah, I can be a liberal arts major and I can come out and everything's cool and copacetic. But the reality of it is that, there are so many people who are that way, and they don't walk in. They walk in, they've got all this extra debt. They've got all this extra, burden that they need to pay off, and they can't really go anywhere because their degree isn't appropriate or applicable to whatever it is that they're trying to get into. And yet you have the trades.
I know a few people who've gone to school for a career that they thought they wanted to go into, spend all their parents' money, and then end up not doing that thing.
Yeah.
I know someone who went to Hawaii to study marine biology.
Right.
And they end up working at a sporting goods store. And that degree, I don't even know they got the degree.
Right. And I think what a lot of people skip, or what a lot of people don't realize, is that that you can go in to a job like what you've done, and they pay for your schooling. They pay for you to learn, and they pay you while you're learning. And if you stick with it, then you walk out. I mean, my guess is you didn't have a big, huge burden of, a mountain of college loans and debt to it, would be my guess.
Tuition was paid for.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that a lot of people are missing, that a lot of people skip. Just because of the fact that it doesn't seem to be glamorous. But I'm going to be honest with you, glamorous means nothing. What really means something is money in the pocket, taking care of your family, taking care of yourself, making sure that you're being taken care of and taking care of the people that you care about. That's what really matters. And if you can go ahead and do that doing a trade, there's absolutely no reason why you can't get involved with something like that.
Yeah.
So, I applaud you. I honestly, I do. I really have a lot of respect. And here, wait a minute. Got to give it to you. I've messed things around. Hold on. Here we go. I got to hand it to you. I mean, I really got to hand it to you because, a lot of people don't really understand that. And I actually think that we're coming into a situation where our country has less blue collar workers, and the trend is going down because people don't want to work with their hands in order to gain by working with your hands, it doesn't just mean that you're working with your hands and you don't have a mind. That's the part that really throws me.
A lot of it's very technical.
Exactly. I mean, so, little hint, I've been working on my son's car. We've been working on it for a very long time. I am not an auto mechanic. I'm nowhere near an auto mechanic, but we've been working on my son's car, and those things have so much technology in them, computer-wise, that it's just amazing to me how anybody can walk in and be an auto mechanic in today's world. I mean, going into like the 1970s and stuff, it was pretty simple. Gas, air, spark. I mean, that pretty much covered it, and then you just made the pistons go. Now, there's so many different sensors and so many different places that this thing can fail, that not understanding computers, not understanding, the sensors and how electrical works, and especially in the auto industry, like a lot of these sensors are running at, 5 volts. I was watching a video today trying to figure it out, and it's like, oh yeah, I added this resistor and it was a, 5.2 kilo ohm resistor, and so on and so forth. And I added it to the ECU. And I mean, I'm just like, oh my gosh, you have to be a technologist, you have to be a mechanic, you have to understand, electrical, you have to understand computers, you have all these different things that you have to do. And so, trying to get into a trade, I think is a very viable career, especially considering the fact that it is low strength, that people have the ability to get in and get on the job training, get their training paid for. You're not coming out of the gate as an individual with a high burden of monetary debt to get into something like that. So again, I I applaud you. I really do. I am impressed. I mean, first of all, to be able to just get into that and then be able to with it for as long as you have, and you take pride in your work. And I can tell just by the way that you speak and everything else, and I've seen some of the fabulous work that people like you have done on my side of the equation, and I've watched people who really do take pride in their work. So again, I actually applaud you. I do. I'm gonna give you another round of applause here, just because I really I mean, to be able to do that. And the other thing is, my cousin actually, he went into the Navy, and he went in and he became an electrician. He came out, and I've got to be honest with you, the guy was smart. He was so smart to do that. And I don't even know if he's doing it anymore today. I think he still is. But he went in with the idea, hey, the military is going to take care of me and they're going to pay for me to become an electrician. And he became an electrician. He did that. I am just, for somebody to be able to go and do that, to me is pretty impressive. And again, I think the trades are places to go. I think they are a viable alternative. Just like, for those that go into the military is a viable alternative too. But definitely don't shut your doors, and don't just think of college is the only way to go, because college may end up being a dead end.
Yeah, just because you think you want to do it now doesn't mean you will want to do it the rest of your life.
Well, exactly. And that's kind of my point, is that, you fell into the electrician thing. I fell into what I was doing, even though I had some related stuff. I've known so many different people who have been like, yeah, I went to college to be, like you said, I went to college to be a marine biologist, and, now I'm a manager at some financial firm or something like that. I mean, I don't know too many people realistically who have not changed their career. So
yeah, I think that's the main way things actually should happen, is you don't go into a career until you know what you want to do. I didn't become an electrician until I was 27.
Yeah, and I didn't really start on my path until, well, I mean, you got to count my military service, but outside of that, I didn't really start on my path until I got out of the service, which would have been, 26, 27. So yeah. Yep. I've kind of made.
For a while, I was even a chef at a kind of a hibachi place. What is that place? I can't think of it. Anyway, where the chef is at the flat top.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at the table, and it was kind of a knockoff of that, a little lighter version of it.
Right.
I was the only white guy there. They took pity on me.
Yeah. Well, now,
and I did. I mean, I enjoyed it,
mm-hmm.
but that because it was cooking, and that was one of the paths I wanted to follow, was to be a chef, but I was kind of scared away from that. And
right.
I'm kind of glad I did. I'm making a lot more money than I would have as a chef.
Oh yeah.
Unless I was like Gordon Ramsay or something, which ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of that stuff you have to think about it. It's sort of like being a sports superstar. No matter what sport you get into, it's only like the top 5% of the top 1% actually go and like get the huge big contracts and things like that. I mean, you're more likely to be struck by lightning than you are to be able to go and do that kind of thing, unless you are so extremely talented that you're identified early and that kind of thing, and that's just everything you've been groomed to do. I don't think that's a realistic dream necessarily for people. I think that going out and, again, finding your niche, finding what you enjoy. Now, going into a career and not enjoying it is just as bad as going into a career and having to change careers multiple times, only because of the fact that you can't find what you're doing. I mean, you should at least have some kind of enjoyment with it, because otherwise work becomes such a drag. It really does. So, being able to sit there and be able to, focus on what you want to do, or focus on what you are doing and enjoying it at the same time, I think is really a key in order to be able to do it for 20, 30 years, whatever it is. I mean, I know for a fact I'm probably not going to retire for another probably 20 years. And we could go into all the different reasons for that, but that would be another show. But anyway, so thank you very much for your call. I appreciate it. Hey, it was really great to talk to you again. Sure. And, you have a wonderful evening, and don't get yourself shocked. Let's just put it that way.
It's inevitable.
Yeah, I'm sure. I actually, real quick, I did have an electrician guy that I was talking to, and I said, hey, I kind of did a joke on him, and he got mad at me, totally rightfully so. But he also told me, he's like, yeah, I've been shocked multiple times. And I was like, okay. I go, well, you've been shocked by what? 120? He's like, oh no, I've been hit by 440, and I've been hit by, some other thing. And I'm going, holy crap. You've been hit by that and you're still alive. And he goes, oh yeah. He goes, well, it doesn't really kill you unless it crosses your heart. I was like, oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I've been hit by 277. That's not fun.
Yeah, he said it hurt. He said it hurt really, really bad. He goes, and yes, he did have to spend time. But that being said, he was like, look, it does hurt, but sometimes you can walk away from it. So that's cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for your call. You have a wonderful evening, sir. Sure. And again, thanks for calling in. Good talking to you.
You too.
All right. Oh, goodness. What happened here? Well, that's weird. I don't know how that happened, but I ended up not being connected. So that's kind of odd. But anyway, all right. Wow. Okay. So that pretty much wraps up our show for tonight. I do appreciate our caller. And let me actually get back to... So once again, if you like what you have heard, please go and subscribe on YouTube. Check it out at Whiskey Musings. On YouTube, you can check out all my past episodes. They are all there. You can subscribe, hit the little subscribe button. I would certainly enjoy it. I'm trying to make this a little bit further, a little more of a go. But anyway, please feel free, reach out to get follow on Twitter. I do have now. Twitter is Musings Whiskey, not Whiskey Musings. It's actually backwards. Musings Whiskey on Twitter. And I have a few people I've noticed over here on my Twitter, Periscope TV outlet. I want to give a shout out to them. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate that. And if you are considering college, if you're 18 and you are considering college, reach out to some other people. Look at all of your options. Don't just think that college is the only way to go, because there are several good career choices that are out there. It may not be glamorous, but it'll get you what you need. It may not be, it may be difficult to get there a little bit in terms of that, but there are options out there. You can do something outside of college. It is entirely possible. And there is no shame in being part of the trades, because tradesmen are actually craftsmen. And if you can get to the point where you are a craftsman, just like my guest was tonight, to where you can do things without even thinking, you get to a certain level. It's almost like the Obi-Wan or Yoda level of jobs out there. Definitely, please do it. Because there is a shortage of people out there. You can listen to Mike Rowe. You can listen to a whole bunch of people. I have a great applause. I love the trades. I love people who are out there. In fact, I'm going to give them, let me get this up here. I'm going to give them another round of applause because I absolutely love the trades. I love tradesmen. I think that especially when they become craftsmen, and we're talking about, carpenters, electricians, plumbers, auto mechanics. We're talking about the people who actually make this world work. And it's not even just them. I mean, you can get into things, if you think about it, this pandemic really has highlighted people who are in those jobs. And if you think about it, I mean, bankers are not considered necessarily essential. But banks may be open, but bankers by themselves, lawyers by themselves, people who go and have a college degree are not necessarily always considered essential. But there are jobs out there that are essential, that have to work, that have to be there, that have to provide the basic services that we deal with. And those are the types of people that you really should be striving for. You should really be striving to go toward those jobs. And not only that, but you also have, people who are underappreciated as well, or people like firefighters and even policemen, underappreciated. There are so many people that are out there that are doing the jobs that are daily work, everyday medical folks. Even though, doctors, there's nurses. I mean, I know now that even doctors depend on nurses, and you can go and get a nursing degree fairly easily. It's those kinds of things that I think you really, really need to focus on. You really need to look at some of those things that you can go and do. And that's what we should be looking for. Those are the types of people that we need to appreciate. Those are the types of people that I know I appreciate. And I mean, I can't even talk about them enough. I really can't. But anyway, thank you very much for the show. I'm going to say one more thing about please subscribe. If you like what I'm doing, check out my YouTube channel. Please subscribe and definitely like. If you like what I'm doing, subscribe to it. We'll catch you next week on the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Have a good rest of your evening.